In the secluded village of Miralune, nestled between ancient mountains where shadows danced like spirits at dusk, there lived a woman named Serena. As you picture her now in your mind's eye, you can almost smell the enticing aromas that wafted from her cooking pot, drawing villagers from near and far. Serena's culinary magic was renowned throughout the region, her hands transforming simple ingredients into experiences that transported those who tasted them to places of pure delight. People would close their eyes as they savored each mouthful, feeling tensions melt away with every bite, surrendering to the pleasure that seemed to flow directly from Serena's soul into their bodies. Serena the Enchantress, they called her, though the only enchantment she knew was the ancient recipes passed down through generations of her family. You can imagine, can't you, how her food stall became the heart of Miralune, the central gathering, place where laughter flowed as freely as conversation, where strangers became friends over steaming bowls of her famous stew. The entire village breathed in rhythm with Serena's cooking schedule, anticipating each day's offerings with childlike excitement. And, speaking of children, Serena had a daughter named Luna, a bright-eyed girl with a laugh that sounded like silver. Bells. Serena's face would transform completely whenever Luna was near, her love radiating so powerfully you could almost reach out and touch it. For Luna, Serena would move mountains, rearrange stars, challenge the gods themselves if necessary. But Serena's path hadn't always been illuminated by such joy. During her pregnancy with Luna, tragedy struck like lightning from a clear sky. Serena's beloved husband Marcus, Luna's father, was suddenly taken by a swift and merciless illness. In the space between one heartbeat and the next, Serena's world collapsed, leaving her to navigate the darkness alone, with only the promise of her unborn child to guide her forward. Yet, as you're beginning to understand, Serena possessed an inner strength that burned like an eternal flame. Instead of surrendering to despair, she channeled her grief into her cooking, rising before dawn each day to prepare her stall. The villagers, witnessing her resilience, developed a profound respect that transcended their appreciation of her food. They saw in Serena something they all aspired to be, unbreakable in the face of life's cruelest storms. As Luna grew, mother and daughter became inseparable. They moved through life as a single unit, their bond so profound it seemed to exist beyond the physical realm. Their modest home, though simple in its construction, contained more love than many palaces, resonating with laughter and whispered secrets shared between two hearts that beat as one. Then came the day when darkness descended upon Miralune once more. A respected farmer named Elias, known for his gentle nature and honest dealings, visited Serena's stall as he did each week. With a smile and a polite nod, he enjoyed his meal among friends, savoring every mouthful, as was his custom. Yet, within hours, Elias was writhing in agony, his body convulsing as blood poured from his mouth. By nightfall, his heart had ceased its beating, his soul departed from a body that had betrayed him without warning. In a village where such occurrences were mercifully rare, there could be only one explanation that made sense to the frightened minds of the villagers: poison. And who had prepared Elias's final meal? The answer whispered through Miralune like a venomous serpent: Serena. The transformation of the villagers was as swift as it was terrifying. People who had embraced Serena for years, who had broken bread at her table and sought her comfort in times of need, now looked at her with eyes cold as midwinter frost. Poisoner, they hissed. Witch, they accused. Fear and suspicion spread faster than any plague, infecting even those who had called themselves Serena's closest friends. No one stopped to consider alternatives. No one remembered Serena's years of kindness. No one spoke of how she had nursed the sick and fed the hungry without asking for payment. The villagers' minds had locked onto a single narrative, and nothing, not reason, not past experience, not even the pleading eyes of a woman they had once loved, could redirect their thoughts. As you picture this scene unfolding, you might feel a tightening in your chest, an instinctive recognition of the terrible injustice about to occur. You might want to cry out, to intervene, to make them see reason. But like Luna, who stood frozen in horror, you can only watch as the tragedy unfolds with the inexorable momentum of an avalanche. The mob descended upon Serena's stall with destruction in their hearts. Stones clutched in white-knuckled hands became weapons of execution. The first stone struck Serena's shoulder, causing her to stumble. The second opened a gash on her forehead, blood flowing into her eyes. Still, she did not run. Perhaps she believed until the very end that they would remember who she was, that their love would overcome their fear. It did not. Stone after stone found its mark until Serena lay motionless on the ground where she had once served happiness by the bowlful. Luna, only 10 years old, witnessed every moment, her screams merging with the wind that suddenly gusted through the village, as if nature itself were crying out against this injustice. Serena the enchantress, the heart of Miralune, was gone, and Luna was left alone in a world that had stolen everything from her. In the aftermath of Serena's death, the villagers of Miralune could not bear to look upon Luna, for in her eyes they saw their own guilt reflected back at them. The decision was made quickly. Luna would be sent to live with her uncle Thorn in the neighboring village of Emberdale. Thorn, Serena's brother, had not been close to his sister in recent years, their paths having diverged when he married and started his own family. Yet, when word reached him of the tragedy, something deep and primal awakened within him, a sense of duty perhaps, or the stirring of long-dormant familial love. Whatever the reason, Thorn opened his home to his orphaned niece without hesitation. "You are family," he told Luna as she arrived, eyes hollow from tears and trauma. And family protects its own. Thorn's wife, Mara, embraced Luna with a warmth that began to thaw the ice that had formed around the child's heart. Their 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, initially regarded their cousin with curiosity that soon transformed into acceptance. They included her in their games, shared their toys, and gradually, Luna began to remember what it felt like to belong. The nightmares still came, of course. Luna would wake screaming, the image of her mother's broken body imprinted on the inside of her eyelids. During these moments, Mara would hold her close, rocking her gently, whispering that tomorrow would be better, that healing takes time, but always comes to those who wait for it. And slowly, increment by painful increment, Luna learned to smile again. The pain didn't disappear, it merely changed form, becoming a companion rather than a tormentor. She helped Mara with household chores, played with her cousins, and sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, she would practice cooking using her mother's techniques, keeping alive the one connection she still had to Serena. Years passed, like pages turning in a book, each one bringing Luna closer to adulthood. At 18, she had grown into a young woman whose beauty rivaled her mother's, with the same expressive eyes that seemed to reflect both sorrow and strength in equal measure. It was around this time that Thorn, now gray-haired and moving more slowly than before, decided that Luna deserved to know the complete truth about her mother's death. He had protected her from the full story, telling her only that villagers had blamed Serena for a death she didn't cause. But now, seeing the woman Luna had become, he felt she was strong enough to bear the weight of the whole truth. "Luna," he said one evening as they sat together by the hearth, the rest of the family already retired for the night, "there's something about your mother I need to tell you." Luna looked up from the embroidery in her lap, her fingers stilling on the colorful thread. "What is it, Uncle?" Thorn's eyes reflected the dancing flames as he began to speak. He told her of Elias, the farmer who had died after eating at Serena's stall. He explained how quickly the villagers had turned on her, how they had stoned her to death without trial or testimony. His voice broke as he described the collective madness that had seized Miralune that day, the rush to judgment that had cost Serena her life. Your mother was innocent, Luna. She would never harm a soul. What happened to her was a terrible injustice, born of fear and ignorance. I want you to know that, to carry that truth with you always. Luna sat motionless, tears streaming down her face, each one catching the firelight like a falling star. The truth was painful, as truth so often is, but it also brought a strange sense of relief. The mystery that had haunted the edges of her understanding was finally revealed in its entirety, allowing her to grieve properly for the first time. "Thank you for telling me," she whispered, reaching for her uncle's weathered hand. "I've always known in my heart that Mother couldn't have done what they accused her of. She loved people too much to ever cause them harm." That night, Luna dreamt of her mother, not as she had last seen her, broken and bloodied, but as she had been in life, vibrant, loving, her hands moving with practiced grace as she prepared food for those she cared about. In the dream, Serena smiled at Luna and said, "Remember who you are, my daughter. Remember and live." Luna woke with tears on her cheeks, but a newfound determination in her heart. For the first time in years, she felt connected to her mother in a way that transcended memory and grief. It was as if Serena had passed a torch to her, illuminating a path forward. But fate, it seemed, had not finished testing Luna's resilience. Mere weeks after their fireside conversation, Thorn fell ill. What began as a simple cough quickly deteriorated into something more sinister. The local healer did what she could, but some afflictions answered to no treatment, and within days, Thorn was gone. The loss hit Luna with devastating force. Thorn had been more than an uncle. He had been a father figure, a protector, the one constant in a life marked by upheaval. His absence left a void that echoed with every footstep in the suddenly quiet house. After the funeral, as Luna stood staring at the freshly turned earth of Thorn's grave, her cousins approached her with downcast eyes and heavy hearts. The eldest, now the man of the house, spoke the words Luna had feared since Thorn drew his last breath. "Luna, we care for you deeply," he began, his voice tight with discomfort. "But things have changed now. With Father gone, we can barely support ourselves. You're a grown woman now, capable and strong. It's time for you to find your own path." Though his words were gentle, their meaning was clear. Luna was once again without a home. That night, as she packed her few belongings, Luna's thoughts turned to Miralune, the village of her birth, the place of her greatest joy and deepest sorrow. 8 years had passed since that fateful day. Perhaps the villagers had forgotten, or at least moved beyond the tragedy. Perhaps she could return and build a life there, reclaiming a piece of her heritage. The idea took root in her mind, growing stronger with each passing moment. By dawn, her decision was made. With a tearful goodbye to Mara and her cousins, Luna set out for Miralune, her heart alternating between hope and trepidation with each step of the journey. As she crested the final hill and saw Miralune spread out before her, looking both familiar and strange, like a face from a half-forgotten dream, Luna felt a curious sense of homecoming, mixed with apprehension. She had left this place as a child, scarred by trauma. She returned as a woman seeking reconciliation with her past. Her plan was simple, yet bold. She would open a food stall, just as her mother had done. If the villagers could accept her cooking, perhaps they could accept her, and by extension, begin to heal the wound left by their treatment of Serena. Luna hoped they wouldn't immediately connect her to the tragedy that had occurred years before. After all, she had been just a child then, and her appearance had changed considerably. With the small amount of money she had saved while living. With Thorn, Luna rented a modest room in the village and purchased the basic supplies needed to start her business. The next morning, she set up her stall in the marketplace, arranged her cooking implements, and waited for customers with a mixture of anticipation and dread. But as the sun climbed higher in the sky, Luna's hope began to fade. Villagers walked past her stall without stopping, some averting their eyes, others whispering behind their hands. It seemed that, despite the years that had passed, the memory of Serena and the tragedy associated with her name remained fresh in the collective consciousness of Miralune. Day after day, Luna cooked and waited, but few came. Those who did approach often left without purchasing anything once they learned her name or made the connection to Serena. The whispers followed her everywhere. "That's the poisoner's daughter. How dare she come back here? Does she think?" "We've forgotten," Luna persisted. Drawing on the same well of strength that had sustained her mother, she continued to prepare delicious meals, hoping that eventually someone would give her food a chance, that taste would triumph over prejudice. But each evening, she returned to her rented room with unsold food and a heavier heart. One particularly discouraging evening, as Luna walked home along a deserted path, the weight of rejection pressing down on her shoulders, she became aware of a presence watching her from the shadows. Turning quickly, she found herself face to face with an elderly woman she had never seen before. The woman was small and bent, her body twisted by age, or perhaps something else entirely. Her eyes, however, were sharp and clear, seeming to pierce through Luna's defenses and examine her very soul. There was something unsettling about those eyes. They appeared to glow with an inner light that set Luna's nerves on edge. "Why do you weep, child?" the old woman asked, her voice surprisingly melodious for one so aged. Luna wiped her tears, suddenly self-conscious. "No one will buy my food," she admitted. "They remember my mother and what happened to her. They think I'm like her." The old woman's lips curved into a smile that didn't quite reach those disconcerting eyes. "Ah, yes, your mother Serena. The villagers still fear her memory, don't they?" She moved closer, her movements fluid, despite her apparent frailty. "But it's not just fear that keeps them away, child. Something is missing from your food." Luna frowned, confused by the stranger's words. "What do you mean? I cook the best food I can, just as my mother taught me." The old woman's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp, too white for a woman of her apparent years. "It's not about skill, child. There's something you must add to make the villagers come to you, something special." A chill ran down Luna's spine, though she couldn't have explained why. "What is it?" she asked, even as a voice in the back of her mind warned her that she might not want to know the answer. The old woman leaned in closer, her breath surprisingly sweet as she whispered, "Your pubic hair. Use it to prepare the food." From within the folds of her tattered cloak, she produced a small, intricately carved calabash. "And mix a little of this black substance into each pot." Luna recoiled in disgust, taking an involuntary step backward. "No, that's revolting. I could never do such a thing." The old woman's laugh was dry and brittle, like dead leaves scraping across stone. "Your mother said the same thing, child, and look what happened to her." Her expression hardened, the pretense of warmth vanishing from her face. "The villagers believe she poisoned that young farmer, don't they? But the truth is not what they think." Luna's heart began to race. "What do you mean?" The old woman's eyes glinted in the gathering darkness. "Your mother didn't poison anyone," she said, her voice now cold and precise. "It was us, we, the witches of the forest, caused that man's death." A gasp escaped Luna's lips. "But why? My mother wouldn't hurt anyone." "Your mother refused to join us," the witch said, taking another step toward Luna. "We asked her, warned her, but she thought she could live her life without our power. So we taught her a lesson. We killed that man and made the villagers believe it was her fault." Luna felt as if the ground beneath her feet had suddenly vanished. All these years, she had believed her mother was the victim of a tragic misunderstanding. Now she learned that Serena had been deliberately targeted, her reputation and ultimately her life destroyed as punishment for defying the witches. You killed my mother," Luna whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of horror and rage. The witch's smile returned, cruel and satisfied. "Yes, child, and now it's your turn to decide. Will you follow in your mother's footsteps and refuse us, or will you do what's necessary to survive?" Luna's mind raced. Was this why no one bought her food? Was this dark magic the secret to breaking the curse that seemed to hang over her mother's legacy? The witch extended the calabash toward Luna. "Like I said, there is something missing from your food. If you want to sell, if you want the villagers to come to you, you must use your pubic hair and mix in a little of this black substance." Luna's stomach churned with revulsion. "No, I can't. It's disgusting and wrong." The witch's expression darkened, her eyes narrowing to glittering slits. "Your mother thought the same thing, and look where that led her. Dead at the hands of angry villagers. Don't be a fool like she was." She pressed the calabash into Luna's reluctant hands. "If you refuse, child, you will face the same fate." Before Luna could respond, the witch turned and walked away, her form seeming to dissolve into the deepening shadows. "Think carefully, Luna," her voice called back, disembodied in the darkness. "Your life depends on it." Luna stood rooted to the spot, the calabash, heavy in her hands, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and emotions. Could she really do what the witch suggested? Was it worth compromising her principles to avoid her mother's fate? That night, sleep eluded Luna. She paced her small room, the witch's words echoing in her mind like a malevolent chant. Her mother had refused the witch's demands and paid the ultimate price. Now Luna stood at the same crossroads, facing an impossible choice. On one hand, the thought of following the witch's instructions filled her with disgust and shame. On the other, the prospect of continuing to fail, of possibly meeting the same violent end as her mother, terrified her beyond measure. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Luna made her decision. She couldn't continue living in this limbo of rejection and failure. If using the witch's methods was the only way to survive in Miralune, to reclaim some part of her heritage, then she would do it, not with pride, but with determination born of desperation. That morning, with trembling hands and a heart heavy with conflict, Luna prepared her food using the witch's instructions. Every movement felt like a betrayal of her mother's memory, yet she forced herself to continue. When she finally added a pinch of the black substance from the calabash, watching it dissolve into the stew she had prepared, her stomach clenched with a mixture of revulsion and fearful anticipation. As Luna opened her stall that day, she was consumed by anxiety. Would the villagers somehow know what she had done? Would the food taste different? Would this desperate gamble end in further humiliation? But to her astonishment, something remarkable happened. A villager approached her stall, then another and another. Soon a small crowd had gathered, the aroma of her cooking drawing them like moths to a flame. "This smells wonderful," said a woman Luna had never spoken to before. "I'll try a bowl," a man declared, placing coins in Luna's trembling hand. As the villagers tasted her food, their expressions transformed. Eyes widened in pleasure, murmurs of appreciation rippled through the crowd. "This is extraordinary," someone said. "I've never tasted anything like it." By midday, Luna had sold everything. Her pots were empty, her coin purse full, and the villagers were already asking when she would cook again. Word spread rapidly throughout Miralune. A new food seller had arrived whose dishes were not merely delicious, but somehow transcendent, creating an experience that left people craving more. Luna returned to her room that evening with conflicting emotions. On one hand, she felt a rush of validation and relief. For the first time since returning to Miralune, she had been accepted, even celebrated. On the other hand, she was painfully aware that this success came at a cost, a compromise of her integrity. That left a bitter taste in her mouth, despite the sweet words of the villagers. As weeks turned into months, Luna's business flourished beyond her wildest expectations. What had begun as a modest food stall expanded into a thriving enterprise. People traveled from neighboring villages just to sample her renowned cooking. Her name spread throughout the region, spoken with reverence by those who had experienced her culinary magic. With her newfound wealth, Luna purchased land and built a house. Not just any house, but the grandest one in Miralune. Its stone walls and gleaming windows stood as a testament to her success, a physical manifestation of her triumph over adversity. Yet, despite her growing operation, Luna never allowed anyone else to prepare the food. She hired assistants to serve, customers, and maintain the stall. But the cooking remained exclusively her domain, her dark secret, guarded zealously. As Luna's fame grew, however, so did the resentment of certain villagers, particularly the women of Miralune. They couldn't help but notice how their husbands and sons gravitated toward Luna's stall, how they spoke of her food with an enthusiasm that bordered on obsession, how their eyes lingered on Luna herself with barely disguised admiration. Whispers began to circulate, hushed conversations behind closed doors. "There's something unnatural about her success," they said. How else could she rise from nothing to become the most successful person in the village in such a short time? She must be using some kind of enchantment. But Luna paid little attention to these rumors. She had achieved everything she had ever wanted: wealth, security, recognition. The jealousy of a few village women seemed a small price to pay for such abundance. Yet despite her outward success, Luna could never fully silence the voice of conscience that whispered to her in the quietest moments of the night. No matter how luxurious her home, how substantial her wealth, there remained a shadow over her heart, a knowledge that her prosperity was built on a foundation of darkness. One cold winter night, as Luna sat alone in her grand house, a fire crackling in the hearth and casting dancing shadows on the walls, a familiar chill permeated the room. The flames flickered, then dimmed, as if responding to an unseen presence. Before Luna could rise from her chair, the witch materialized. From the shadows, her ageless eyes gleaming with the same unnerving light Luna remembered. "Luna," the witch said, her voice slithering through the room like smoke, "it's time." Luna's heart stuttered in her chest. Time for what? The witch's smile was a cruel slash across her withered face. "You didn't think your success would come without a continuing price, did you? We've given you wealth, power, fame. Now it's time for you to pay us back." Luna swallowed hard, her throat suddenly dry. "But I've done everything you asked. I followed your instructions exactly. Isn't that enough?" The witch shook her head slowly, her eyes never leaving Luna's face. "No, child. The small sacrifice you made was only the beginning. Now we need something more valuable. We need your womb," Luna gasped, instinctively placing a protective hand over her abdomen. "My womb? But why?" "To maintain your success, to hold on to everything you've gained, you must give up the chance to have children. You will never have a family of your own. That is the price you must pay to keep your fortune." Luna's mind reeled with horror. She had dreamed of having children someday, of filling her large, empty house with laughter and love. Despite all her material success, she had felt a growing loneliness, a yearning for the kind of deep connection that only family could provide. "No," Luna said, rising to her feet, her voice stronger than she expected. "I can't do that. I want children. I want a family. I've worked hard for everything I have, but I won't give up my future for it." The witch's smile vanished, replaced by a cold, hard stare that seemed to drop the temperature in the room by several degrees. "You think you can refuse us, Luna? Do. You think you can walk away from the bargain we made? If you don't give us your womb, you will lose everything, your wealth, your fame, your house. It will all disappear." Luna's hands trembled, but her resolve remained firm. The thought of losing everything terrified her. but the idea of sacrificing her chance at motherhood was even more devastating. In that moment, she understood her own mother more clearly than ever before, understood the courage it had taken. For Serena to defy the witches, to choose her principles over power. "No," Luna repeated, her voice steady despite her fear. "I won't do it. I'll find another way." The witch's face contorted with fury, her features momentarily shifting into something inhuman before settling back into their usual arrangement. "There is no other way, Luna. If you don't pay the price, you will face consequences far worse than you can imagine." Luna stood tall, her heart racing, but her mind made up. "I won't give you my womb. I'll take whatever comes, but I won't give up my future for this." The witch regarded Luna with a gaze that contained equal parts rage and cold calculation. "Very well," she said, her voice like ice cracking. "You've made your choice. But remember, Luna, everything has a price, and yours will be paid in full." With those ominous words, the witch vanished, leaving Luna alone in the suddenly too large room, her heart pounding with fear of what would come next. The morning after the witch's visit, a strange wind swept through Miralune, unlike any the villagers had experienced before. It howled through the streets, rattling windows and doors, carrying with it an unsettling chill that seemed to seep into bones and settle there like a premonition. At Luna's grand house, the wind found a particular focus. It tore at the walls, until a small breach appeared in Luna's private kitchen, the sacred space where she performed the ritual the witch had taught her. The gap was tiny, just large enough for someone to peer through, but in a village fueled by suspicion and jealousy, it was more than enough. Eliza, a woman who had long harbored resentment toward Luna for the attention her husband paid to the successful food seller, noticed the hole while walking past Luna's property. Curiosity and malice propelled her forward. Glancing around to ensure she wasn't observed, Eliza crouched down and pressed her eye to the gap. What she witnessed confirmed her darkest suspicions. Inside, Luna was preparing food using methods that made Eliza's blood run cold, incorporating her own hair into the dishes and sprinkling a mysterious black substance from an ornate calabash. "Witchcraft," Eliza whispered, stumbling backward, her heart racing with a mixture of horror and vindication. Without hesitation, she ran to spread the news, her voice trembling with righteous indignation as she told anyone who would listen about Luna's dark secret. The reaction was swift and violent. Years of suppressed suspicion erupted into open fury, as the villagers, led by those who had harbored the deepest jealousy of Luna's success, descended upon her home. They dragged her from her grand house to the village square, forming a circle around her as they had once circled her mother. Luna stood in the center, trembling but dignified, as the village elders stepped forward to confront her. "Is it true, Luna?" the eldest asked, his voice heavy with disappointment and disgust. "Have you been using witchcraft in your cooking?" For a moment, Luna considered denying everything. She could claim Eliza was lying, driven by jealousy to invent such tales. But as she looked around at the faces of the villagers, some angry, some fearful, some simply sad, Luna felt the weight of her deception pressing down on her with unbearable force. With tears streaming down her face, she nodded. "Yes," she admitted, her voice barely audible above the murmurs of the crowd. "It's true." A collective gasp rose from the assembly, followed by shouts of anger and betrayal. "How could you?" someone cried. "We trusted you," called another. Luna's confession spilled out in a torrent of words. The witch, the bargain, the secret ingredients that had made her food irresistible. With each revelation, the mood of the crowd darkened further, until the air in the village square felt thick with potential violence. The village oracle, a woman respected for her wisdom and fairness, was summoned to pass judgment. She arrived, leaning on a gnarled staff, her face impassive as she listened to the accusations and Luna's tearful explanation. After a long silence, the oracle spoke, her voice carrying clearly across the hushed square. "Luna, daughter of Serena, You have committed a grave transgression against our community. You have used dark arts to manipulate and deceive us." She paused, her penetrating gaze fixed on Luna's tear-stained face. "The witches of the forest have demanded your womb as payment for your continued success. I give you two choices: surrender to their demand or face death for your crimes. The decision is yours." Luna's heart contracted with terror. The choice before her was no choice at all: mutilation or death. In that moment, her mother's fate seemed to hover before her like a specter, a warning of what awaited those who defied. "Both the witches and the villagers, I choose life," Luna whispered, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. The oracle nodded solemnly. "So be it. You will live, but you are banished from Miralune forever. You are forbidden from selling food in this or any neighboring village. Take what you can carry and leave before sunset. If you return, your life is forfeit." The villagers murmured their approval of the sentence. Some still looked angry, demanding harsher punishment, while others seemed relieved that blood would not be shed this day. Luna stood silent, the full impact of her banishment washing over her in waves of grief and loss. With heavy steps, Luna returned to her grand house, no longer hers, to collect what few possessions she could carry. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, she walked out of Miralune, not looking back at the village that had been her mother's home and, briefly, her own kingdom. The tale of Luna and her mother Serena became a legend in Miralune, passed down through generations as a cautionary story about the dangers of ambition unchecked by morality, and the terrible price of dealing with the dark forces that lurk in the shadows of the world. As for Luna, some say she wandered far and found a new beginning in a distant land. Others believe she eventually made peace with her past and built a simple life away from the temptations of power and wealth. And a few whisper that on certain nights, when the moon is full and the wind carries strange scents from the forest, a solitary figure can be seen at the edge of Miralune, watching from a distance, a woman who learned too late that the sweetest success is that which is earned through honest means, and that no bargain with darkness ever ends well for those who make it the end.